Students, we are given this question. If the curves ax squared positive by squared is equal to 1 and cx squared positive dy squared is equal to 1 intersect orthogonally. Now, orthogonally means they are intersecting perpendicularly. So that is the meaning of the word orthogonal. Then we are expected to show that 1 over a negative 1 over b is equal to 1 over c negative 1 over d. We need to show this. Now, I'm going to start the solution for this question in this following manner. Okay, so the problem's solution is given as follows. So, first step, I'm going to say, let the curves intersect at some point, say x0, y0. So this would mean equation 1 would become, I'm going to take this as equation 1 and I'm going to take this as equation 2. Equation 1 can be rewritten as, so equation 1 is going to be a x0 squared positive b y0 squared is equal to 1. I'm going to name this as equation 3. And equation 2 is going to be c x0 squared positive d y0 squared is equal to 1. So this is my 4. Now, since 3 and 4 are equated by 1, I'm going to be equating them. So equating 3 and 4 we get. So what do we get? On the first left side, it's going to be x0 squared positive b times y0 squared is equal to c times x0 squared positive d times y0 squared. I'm going to be moving c times x0 squared to the left. So I have a times x0 squared positive c times x0 squared. This is going to be one term, followed by the next term, b times y0 squared negative. Now, one observation is that when positive c times x0 squared crosses, it has to be negative. So this is going to be negative c times x0 squared, followed by positive b times y0 squared and negative y0 squared. This is what you are going to be having. This is equated to 0. Now, what I can do is I can take the x0 squared out. So if I were to do that, this is going to be a negative c times x0 squared positive b negative d times y0 squared is equal to 0. I'm going to name this as equation number 5. Now, next important point you have to know is for the curves to intersect orthogonally. Now, I already told you the meaning of orthogonal. Orthogonal means perpendicularly. Okay, the slope m1 multiplied with m2 should be equal to negative 1. So the meaning is m1 being the slope of curve 1 and m2 being the slope of curve 2. So m1, now we know that the first curve is given to be as ax squared positive by squared is equal to 1. We need to use this equation. Okay, so differentiating we get, so what do we get when we differentiate ax squared? It's going to be 2 times ax positive 2 times by times differential of y dy over dx is equal to 0. I'm going to move this quantity 2ax to the right side. So that's going to be 2 times by dy over dx is equal to negative 2 times ax. This can be rewritten as dy over dx is equal to negative 2 times ax divided by 2 times by. I can cancel the 2's here, so that is going to be negative a times x divided by b times y. Now, we have taken the point of intersection as x0, y0. So, at x0, y0, you need to obtain this m1. So that's going to be negative a times x naught divided by b times y naught. So this is one slope we have got. Now let's move on to the next one. Now this is for finding m2. Now we are given that c times x squared positive d times y squared is equal to 1. So differentiating we get. So what do we get when we differentiate? This is 2 times c x positive 2 times dy over dx is equal to 0. I move this cx with the 2 on the right side. So that's going to be 2 times dy over dx. This is the differential part, is equal to negative 2 times cx. I can rewrite this as 2 times dy. In fact, I need not have to write this at all. I can simply move 2 times dy to the right side. So that's going to be dy over dx is equal to negative 2 times cx divided by 2 times dy. The 2's can be cancelled. That was going to give us negative c times x divided by dy. Now we are expected to find m2 at x0 comma y0. Okay, so that is going to be giving us negative c times x0 divided by d times y0. Okay, so this is my m2. Now for the curves to intersect orthogonally, okay, we need to get m1 m2 to be equal to negative 1. So this is m1, so that's going to be negative a times x0 divided by b times y0, okay, multiplied with negative c times x0 divided by d times y0. This is equal to negative 1. So I can rewrite this, right, by multiplying the signs on the left side. So that's going to be a times c x0 squared, right, you multiply the x0 divided by b times d y0 squared is equal to negative 1. Now I can cross multiply this, so I'm going to write the quantity here. So that's going to give me a times c x0 squared is equal to negative bd y0 squared. I can move this quantity to the left. That's going to give me ac x0 squared positive b times d y0 squared, and that is going to be equal to 0. So I can take this as system 6 or equation 6. Now we already know, okay, from 5 we know that a negative c times x0 squared positive b negative d times y0 squared is equal to 0. This is my equation number 5. And I have got equation number 6. So I'm going to be using 5 and 6 to get the solution. So we have got this as 5, and we have got equation 6, which I'm going to write it exactly below. So that's going to be ac x0 squared positive b times d y0 squared is equal to 0. So this is 6. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply 5, equation 5, by ac, and I'm going to multiply equation 6 by a negative c. So with this, what happens to 5? I got to multiply by ac, so that's going to be ac times a negative c times x0 squared positive ac times b negative d times y0 squared is equal to 0. And then ac, this we need to multiply by a negative c times ac x0 squared positive a negative c times bd times y0 squared is equal to 0. So this is what we are getting. Now changing the sign, these two terms would be cancelled, giving us ac times b negative d times y0 squared. This is negative, okay, so negative a negative c times bd times y0 squared is equal to 0. I'm going to be moving this to the right, so that would give me ac times b negative d y naught squared is equal to positive a negative c times bd times y naught squared. You can cancel the y naught squared on both sides. I'm going to move AC down, so that's going to be a negative c divided by AC. I'm going to move BD down to the left. That's going to be b negative d divided by BD. So this is what we have got. Now from algebra, I'm going to use this space. I can rewrite this as b divided by BD negative d divided by BD is equal to a divided by AC negative c divided by AC. Now the b's can be cancelled here, the d's can be cancelled here, the a's can be cancelled here, the c's can be cancelled here, giving me 1 over c negative 1 over a on the right. On the left, I would get 1 over d negative 1 over b. Now this is further rewritten. You can, because we are expected to obtain the solution that the question wants us. Now I'm going to use this space here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move 1 over a, positive 1 over a, negative 1 over b is equal to, now 1 over d is here. I'm going to move it to the right. So that's going to be 1 over c, negative 1 over d. So this is what is required, and I have proved.